Let's have a conversation.
What's going on, people? Good morning. We have reached another day. It is Thursday, and I'm just getting into this next episode recap of the challenge Ride or Dies. I say this every single week, but the challenge is back, man. And I say that again as somebody who was like, I'm only still currently even invested in the challenge because of the challenge community. The community and the conversations that we have, the discussions, the arguments, the laughs, all that kind of stuff, that is what has kept me engaged over the last few seasons because I was getting bored. This episode, the whole season has been great so far, but this episode was my favorite episode thus far. So much going in. So, as per usual, the beginning of the episode shows the people who won the elimination at the last episode coming back into the house. And I was looking forward to Crazy Laurel, the Laurel that gets angry, causes fights, and all this kind of stuff. Surprisingly, that's not necessarily what we got. At least that's not what we saw on the screen. It didn't translate that way. It translated as more of a sad and a little bit broken version of her. But let me get into my notes here. So at the beginning, it showed Laurel talking to Olivia, and she asked Olivia if Michelle can just shut up and disappear. Obviously, Laurel and Michelle do not get along, as we've been seeing, and it's been building episode by episode. They did another kind of montage of Jordan and showing about his handicaps and how he basically was just saying that having that handicap always kind of gave him a fire and made him go harder and made him more of a competitor. And I'm not mad. They've showed a few different times where they're giving Jordan somewhat of a hero edit this season, but surprisingly, I am not mad at that because I'm really enjoying Jordan. I enjoyed seeing Jordan on All Stars, and I'm enjoying seeing Jordan on this season of Ride or Dies, back on the mainstay of the challenge. Um, I always liked Jordan to an extent. I did not like his personality, but if anyone knows me, I have like a sports and athletic background myself. So that side of him always appealed to me, where I'm like, yo, this dude is awesome. He's just so much of a dick that it's hard to like him. But when it comes to watching him compete, I love watching him compete. I always have. So the competitor side, also with this kind of change in his personality. I mean, he's still Jordan, as we're going to find out later on. But some of the parts about him that people really hated the most, it seems like he's grown and is a little bit of a different person. So it showed Banani having a conversation. It showed Johnny Bananas talking to Nanny, who's his partner on this season, and just asking her how she's doing and asking her if, about how she's feeling being on this season with everything that happened with her mom passing. So I thought it was kind of nice, a nice little clip that they showed where Nanny was just like, I'm glad that I have Bananas here. It changes and makes my season better for me, knowing that he's my partner and he's a winner. And that my main thing that I'm here for is to win. Because if we know Nani, that was not always the main thing she came onto the challenge for. But now she has her girl, she has her fiance. She's working with the biggest winner of all time on the show. And she has the motivation of wanting to do this in honor of her mother's memory, which I can respect that, even though I know Bananas, I know some people have said if it was them, they might have taken the time off. But everybody is different. Everyone has different reasons and motivations for doing things. So that's her reasoning. And, I'm rooting for her. That's not the main team that I want to win, but I love all my vets and I've developed connections, not personal connections with most of them, but just connections with seeing them on the TV over all these years. So I love seeing all the different storylines. It showed a Jack, Jay, and Jay kind of conversation, I guess you could say. And Jay was making all these jokes. Jack wasn't really having it. More foreshadowing. They always do this. So it showed a little thing about Laurel and Horacio. And the thing about that situation, apparently he had somebody, a love interest, not a girlfriend. She was not his girlfriend, but a love interest back home. And at the point where they started to get close, he said, "Hey, there was somebody that I was pursuing at home outside of the house." And she's upset because it's like, why didn't you tell this to me immediately before I got invested, type of thing. Laurel gets invested too easily. There's a history of it. I keep saying this. If you have watched the challenge and seen Laurel on the challenge, yes, one thing she's known for, badass competitor. But another thing that she's known for is falling in love on the challenge. She always falls in love, or even if it's not love, whatever you want to call it, she always falls hard for whoever it is that she's falling for. And this is proven over and over and over again. Y'all remember Nicole? Y'all remember like Cara Maria situation? This is kind of standard. CT, even, I think she had a history with CT. This is kind of standard Laurel. And I don't really think that there's anything wrong with what happened. I feel like he had a love interest. And he was like, okay, he looks like a nice guy and he seems like a nice guy. So I think he was really just trying to tell her, like, hey, I just want you to know that there is this other person back home. And Laurel's kind of like, I know that the way that Laurel thinks is, I don't want there to be another person back home. I want to be your one and only sole focus, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. It is what it is. I will get to these comments. So where are we at? Oh, so Laurel moves out of the room. Laurel actually decides to just move out of the room. Incoming Fessy. When Laurel decides to move out of the room, Fessy swoops in there, but we'll get into that a little later. There's a scene of Horacio talking to Olivia and explaining the girlfriend situation and saying that he doesn't want to hurt Laurel. He cares about Laurel, and he thinks that it was kind of a misunderstanding in a way. So we get into this daily challenge, and in the daily challenge, Johnny, Bananas, and Nany were having an argument during the challenge. Bananas is kind of being bananas, or how he usually is. Nany was struggling a little bit with the word puzzle, and instead of really focusing in and trying to win, Bananas was kind of being jokey with her, and she was snapping at him. So it showed Laurel, and it kind of showed that Laurel's head was out of the game. She was struggling with the daily, and she was saying that she was holding back tears. And that was rough because I'm like, I kind of see that Laurel is checking out a little bit. So now Jay and Michelle win Heat 1. And I'm like, oh man, Jay and Michelle keep winning, which is kind of good in some ways for them and bad in some ways. Horacio and Olivia win Heat 2. So the team that wins overall, the team that ended up winning overall was Jay and Michelle. So they went back to back, which means they have decisions on their hands again about the 4 teams they want to bring into the interrogation. At this point, I'm going to pause for these comments. Good morning, Feeling savvy, all is well with me. It's a good day today. Thanks for asking. Hope all is well with you. Hi, Mark. Off topic. Did you do a video about how to deal with negative or toxic people? Yes, I made a live a couple of weeks ago about dealing with energy leeches. I did. So if you want me to post that link, I will do that a little bit later. So yes, as I was saying, Jay and Michelle, one heat one. Michelle talks about having made a 1-day deal with Devin. You don't do this to me. You don't put me in if you win. I don't put you in if we win. I'm realizing that Survivor is a really different game as I've been watching Survivor, because I'm like, how was Michelle? I keep asking every week, how did Michelle win Survivor? Somebody in the comments who watches Survivor and watched Michelle's season, Trisha, I'm pretty sure you were the one who was talking to me about Survivor. Can you explain to me how Michelle won Survivor? What skills did she use to win Survivor? Because clearly they're not translating well to the challenge. She's a mess on the challenge. I mean, she's good with the wins. Obviously, she's a good competitor, but she's really bad with the politics. She's really, really bad with the politics. So they have a conversation about everything. Michelle is talking to Amber about that deal that she made with Devin. And Amber is saying in the confessional, I was trying to work with Michelle, but the thing is, Michelle is kind of giving me weird vibes. Like, I don't know if she's trustworthy, which is really understandable because she's playing a really emotional game. Yeah, Michelle won Survivor. Yeah. Let me see here. So they have an easy choice. They're like, we're gonna obviously pick Laurel and Jack. That wasn't even a second thought. So they're like, we're gonna put them on the board. They felt pressure to put Nanny and Bananas on the board. Now I watched Wes's Patreon. I'm subscribed to Wes's Patreon, and on his recap, he made a great point, which was to say, if you're gonna say that you didn't put Bananas and Nani in the previous week for the purpose of having a deal with them for later on, for it to benefit you later on, like you scratch my back, I scratch yours type of deal, then why are you going to put them in the following week? Because at that point, if that was your reason for not putting them in the last week, it's gone now because they're going to be pissed at you. So the deal that you made with them became null and void as soon as you decided to throw them in this week. So either this week's decision was a bad one or last week's decision. And I'm going to go with last week being the bad one. And this week you just compounded it and made everything worse. So they picked Nani and Bananas because of the backlash they got from the vets in the house about why did they not pick them the previous week. Here's where the show starts. The show is starting to percolate at this point. It's heating up. Everything was heating up. Here we go. So they decide to put Casey and Kenny. So this is how they came to this conclusion. They were like, what is the best chance that we can have to put Laurel and Jack against Bananas and Nani? That's what they had initially said. Things changed up though. So Casey and Kenny, they pick Casey and Kenny, and they pick Aneesa and Jordan. That's their 4 teams. Laurel and Jack, Nani and Bananas, Casey, Kenny, Aneesa, Jordan. So this time, instead of being silent and doing the stare down that Laura was doing, instead of doing all that stuff, she decided to campaign. And I found this part really funny. Jack was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen, and it's free. And the reason he was saying that is because he was like basically saying, Laurel does not put on a fake smile or pretend or fake or beg for anything. Laurel is usually just like, I don't care. But this time she was trying to take a softer approach to avoid going into the elimination. So Nani gets in there, Nani and Bananas, and Nani is really pissed. Really pissed. So we start to see the old fiery Nani coming out, where she's basically telling Jay and Michelle, now you got an enemy in me. You're going to put me in there, and you're going to put my girlfriend in there. And that's it for me. Like, I'm not even doing any campaigning. Johnny, on the other hand, is actually trying to be the voice of reason. So if there's one thing about Johnny Bananas, yes, the man has a lot of pride. The man has a lot of ego, but he wants to win more than anything else. So anytime you see Johnny in those scenarios, he is going to do the passive approach and get himself out of that. Unless it was Wes back in their rivalry days, but even Wes, he would try to reason with him if he was in that type of position, asking for safety. So anyways, the way that this shakes out, I'm skipping one of the best parts of this. Jordan becomes Jordan. That's actually what I have written down in my notes. Jordan becomes Jordan. And what I mean by that is Jordan does not ever come on any of these shows for politics, for laying back, for laying low. He's been doing that thus far. He has not had a target on his back. He has not had any enemies, which is unlike a Jordan season until now. So they get into this discussion and then he's talking to Jay, and he's telling Jay and Michelle, don't pretend like we're friends. You made promises to Johnny Bananas and Nani. You made promises to Jack. You looked it up and she won because of her social game. And honestly, it's almost making me want to see that season. I might not do it right now, but eventually I'm going to review Michelle's season because I have to know how she won. But anyways, Jordan says, don't act like we're friends. Jordan said to Jay, don't say one thing and do another because that makes you weak. And Jay got really upset about that. Jay did not like me, and he said, don't push your insecurities onto me. Jay did not take kindly to being called weak by Jordan. But the thing about Jordan is a very straight shooter. Jordan just likes people to tell him like it is. He doesn't like for you to BS and talk around the situation. He likes people to be very direct. So he didn't like the fact that he feels that Jay and Michelle were just kind of playing around and trying to do the politics game. And the reasons that they gave for putting them in the previous week were that they didn't talk enough game with them, and they didn't know which side they were on. So Jordan was like, last week you guys said it was because you didn't know which side we were on and if we were working with you or not. Now we have said that we are willing to work with you, but you are still throwing us in. So that got really tense and heated in there. So the thing is, Jordan didn't play. Jordan wasn't trying to do any politics in that room. He was just like, I don't care. I'm just going to tell you like it is. If you want to put us in, you can put us in, whatever. Anissa didn't stop him from saying that, as she said in the confessional. She was like, I would have stopped him if he was wrong, but he's not wrong. And Jay at that point said, do you want to go in, bro? But I'm thinking to myself at that point, he's not going to actually select them to go in because that wouldn't make any sense. Because I assumed his plan was like, okay, Laurel and Jack are already pissed at me, so I'm just going to put them in again and then hope that either Bananas and Nany or Casey and Kenny pick the safe dagger and then choose the other one, and then Jordan and Aneesa are going to go in anyways against Laurel and Jack. But surprisingly, I guess this thing with Jordan ruffled feathers enough that they completely decided to change that plan and select Aneesa and Jordan to go in. Don't poke the bear. First of all, I keep saying this. Yes, people always talk about they don't think that Aneesa has the cardio and the ability to do well in a final or finish a final of today. But she's sure as good at those eliminations. She has hella elimination wins, and she has wins against top competitors. Aneesa's not easy to take out in an elim. And obviously, Jordan is one of the GOATs in the eliminations. So that's a tough team, whether you want them out or not. That's a tough team to take out. And that's a team that I don't feel like you want as an enemy. And then Aneesa has so many friends in the house. She's a top political player, and she's been doing this game so long. So she's not somebody you want as an enemy. So Jay and Michelle, I feel like their life in this game, to use a Survivor term, their life in this game is limited to when they lose. When they don't win a daily, they're going in. That's just how I feel. If they don't win a daily, the next daily they lose, they're going in. They have the most enemies and they have the most blood on their hands. They're not playing this game well. I skipped over the Fessy Laurel scene. I'm just going to touch on that briefly. It showed Laurel all of a sudden cuddling up with Fessy, and Fessy saying, "Do you hug Horacio like this?" And I'm like, and then he said, "I try not to be messy, but the messiness just finds me," or something like that. You look for them. You were born messy. Probably leaves his bed messy when he goes for the dailies and the eliminations and all that stuff. But anyways, TJ asks Jay and Michelle who they're gonna throw down, and as I said, Jay was like, it was gonna go one way. I thought it was gonna go one way, but because of emotional discussions that we had, it went another way. And then basically that just meant that they were gonna pick Laurel and Jack initially, but then they switched up the vote to put Aneesa and Jordan in there. And I'm like, okay, we will see what happens from here. Fessy from Big Brother is on there. Yeah, there's a lot of Big Brother players on the challenge, Trisha. There's tons of them. They got Casey on there. They had Tommy and Annalise. Who else from Big Brother? That's what I can think of right now on the top of my head. But yeah, there's a lot of crossover now. So anyways, we get to the safe dagger. We're almost at the end of the episode. We get to the safe dagger. Bananas and Nany are the first people to pick the dagger. They pick the safe dagger. They both make a speech, Nany and Bananas, but we knew that obviously Nany was going to save Casey at all costs. That was not even the only way that Laurel and Jack were going to be safe is if they picked the safe dagger, and that was known. So we get into this elim, and Jordan and Aneesa dominated. It was this dodgeball thing where they had to knock down 10 faces of different challengers. I was cheering so hard at the end of this thing because Jordan had knocked down 9 of the faces, and then he pointed at Jay before he threw the 10th one, and he was like, "What did I tell you?" And then he said it again. "What did I tell you?" Before throwing the 10th one. So to set the scene, I can't even really describe it that well, but there's 10 challengers heads that you're throwing a dodgeball at. You throw the there's somebody guarding. One of the teammates is guarding all of those heads like a goalie. You're supposed to get it past them and put it through the hole, right? So Jordan had hit 9 targets already. And before throwing the 10th ball, he points at Jay, who threw him in, and said, "What did I tell you? What did I tell you?" Before he hit it. And then he hit it right after that. I was like, man, Jordan in eliminations is legendary. Legendary. Jay must be shaking in his boots right now at Jordan, an angry Jordan coming back, because Jordan is the type that will throw his whole game away for revenge. And that is the end of the episode. Nani was like in the confessional, Jordan is a very spiteful man. And he said that he's coming for vengeance. So the season is getting hotter as time goes by. I noticed that the vet beefs are really what is happening right now. Because I noticed that the first few episodes, Horacio and Johnny Raven, those people, I know Johnny and Raven are out now, but I noticed the rookies were on Front Street. But now with rookies having gotten picked off, the veteran beefs are starting to come to the surface. And one thing that I have to say, even though I was like, at one point I was like, why are all these Big Brother players like infiltrating the challenge? The Big Brother game seems to suit the challenge more. Seems to have more translatable skills than the Survivor game to the challenge. So we're going to see what happens in the coming weeks. It was another great episode, and I will talk to y'all soon.